When I was in high school, I received a very special gift. I'll never forget when I received the gift of my very first digital clock radio. No longer did I have to hear the annoying alarm clang of a bell to wake me up for school. Instead, I could be prodded out of my sleep by the music of my choosing. And to top it all off, it had a magic button. The snooze button. Oh yes, that magical button that could allow me to sleep for 9 more glorious minutes before I had to face the reality of the day. And if I hit the snooze button too many times, well, those extra minutes of sleep were then paid out in many minutes of detention later on. Jesus says, keep awake. When your bed is warm and comfortable, it can be really tempting to want to hit that snooze button and remain in that thin place between awake and asleep. Today's Bible texts are the equivalent of a jarring alarm clock with no snooze button option. Wake up and keep awake. There is no going back now. Wakefulness is one among many Advent buzzwords that you may hear. Watch, prepare, wait, pay attention. The words for this season make me wonder, what are we being called to see or hear, and what are we supposed to do in the meantime? See, Advent isn't the pre-Christmas appetizer, whetting our appetites for the big event of December 25th. No, Advent is a full meal in itself. It's a time when we will hear Bible texts that point to the awaited second coming of Christ, the fulfillment of God's purpose for the cosmos. Yesterday, while I was driving to my son's house, I was scanning the radio and I came upon a Christian radio station promoting a book about the end times, about the eschaton, the apocalypse. And this book is complete with specific Antichrist proof texts from the book of Revelation to spot the work of Satan and his minions, I kid you not, Satan and his minions, and the warning for everyone to get right with God. Apocalyptic texts are often used, or dare I say misused, to scare the hell out of people. As if following Jesus only points to whatever happens in the hereafter, and as if God's grace doesn't extend beyond the grave. This season of Advent reminds us to keep looking for the signs of the coming Messiah here and now, without pretending to know we'll know exactly when the world will end. Jesus says, keep awake. Over the past decades, the term woke has come to the forefront. Perhaps you've heard it. It has morphed as language tends to do, and it has so many layers of meaning. It's being thrown around the political arena as a pejorative term of being too radically liberal. The governor of Florida even signed the Stop Woke Act, designed to limit teachers to what they can say in their classrooms and what corporations can use in employee training. Yet the term woke actually comes out of the civil rights movement of the 20th century, when it was used primarily by Black people to encourage each other to be more aware of the structural racism and to join in efforts to combat it. It's a term that is bestowed upon a person, not self-claimed. And according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, to be woke is to be aware of and actively attentive to important societal facts and issues, especially issues of racial and social justice. Jesus says, keep awake. Now, people with privilege have the luxury of being able to hit the snooze button, and I am one of those people. We may think, if we're not affected, it doesn't have to matter. I must be honest, I am guilty of hitting that snooze button all too often. Because I have the luxury of turning off the news about the war in Ukraine or what's going on in Palestine and Israel. I don't have to hear about the shootings in nightclubs in Colorado or earthquakes in Indonesia. I don't have to listen to the latest statistics about world hunger and malnutrition. When I am fatigued and satiated with bad news, and when I'm feeling hopeless, I have the luxury of ignoring it. And yet, the gospel message is one of urgency, because there are people who are hungry and can't ignore it. People who are experiencing racism, classism, all kinds of isms, and they cannot avoid it. There are people who are hurting, and there are people who are in need of support and stability now. So for as much energy as we put into making our own families beautiful and comfortable and joyful, I believe we also must continue to see that there is much in this world that needs to change, and we are called to be a part of that change. Jesus says, keep awake. Wakefulness is a lifestyle, a way of living with a posture of embodying Jesus, his restless attentiveness, and his merciful solidarity. Christian hope is a force that moves us from passive denial to active anticipation. And what better sign of hope do we have than the baptism of Callum James today? A sign of God's love and forgiveness and resurrection hope as the water is poured over Callum's head, reminding us that through Christ's life, death, and resurrection, God's got this. Salvation does not come through anything we do or the right belief. Rather, it is a precious gift of God to simply be received. Callum's baptism reminds us that we are all adopted into God's family, a really big family that extends beyond these walls, that extends throughout the world, that extends beyond time. And baptism reminds us we are not alone. For there will be days when we are indeed too overwhelmed, times when grief and hopelessness will take over, and it's okay to turn off the news sometimes for your own self-preservation. And we trust that others will be doing the work until we are able once again to join in, watching and waiting and working for that day when swords become plowshares, when fighting spears are pruning hooks, when salvation has come and God's kingdom is fulfilled. Please pray with me. Gracious God, we look forward to that day when all creation will be reconciled to you. In the meantime, awaken our hearts and our minds to the realities and needs of our neighbors. Inspire us with creativity, determination, and endurance as we work to make your kingdom a reality here and now. Blessed be God forever. Amen.